Those big eyes.
Give me the picture.
What we were trying to do was...
Hi. Say hi.
Oh, the nice boy. What a nice boy. What a nice boy.
Rick. You must have been in the house.
What he
He's not
said?
smiling
Shell, welcome
Daddy?
back. Got that nice looking car. That's yours. Please call. We need to see him.
What?
Where do you want me to
Oh,
put it?
throw it on the bed or any place there.
Yo, stop it.
Oh.
Oh, he's taking movie. Oh, you can't play it on mine. You can't play it on mine because it's
different one. I got to get out of the way.
40 mile an hour.
That's the house really cool. But it wasn't working, so we went and got the pads and a motor, and Lori climbed on the
What a
roof.
magnificent.
And
Which one?
Jane
Mandalay in Irving, Texas.
What did you do in there?
That's what I was at it for.
we took care of babies and we did exciting things like shopping at Kmart. That's the big outing in Yucca Valley.
Serve.
And then we went to Thrifty.
Bathrobe.
That's a big
That's a big, one day we went to San Diego Zoo.
Oh, boy.
But that
Oh,
was
boy.
a 3-hour drive.
Oh, boy.
But it was
It's
fun.
$150.
Who takes
You must be
away,
close
huh?
then.
We paid $105 and the horse traveled all over.
And the
He
kids,
said,
you know, the kids.
It was reasonable for what we got.
Joe was still coming home. Okay, now start.
The earthquake was at 5 o'clock in the morning. We awoke and everything was shaking. And the doors jammed. And we couldn't get the boys out of the bedroom. We had to get a hammer and hack down the door to get them out. And I was in the living room and my bed moved near the fireplace, ready to fall down.
Did it happen at night when you were in bed?
5 o'clock in the
Oh,
morning.
5 in the morning. Okay.
And then we went out the house right away. And the steps were out. We had to jump over the steps to get out in the street. And that's it. And then we all went to Jefferson Square Park. Everybody had to get out of the house because it was dangerous. And everybody had to go in the neighborhood where there was a park. And we camped out in the park. And I remember Mother put out the gas stove out the street, Buchanan Street.
Wow.
And she had to cook. And we slept in the tent on the bare floor. Mother had rheumatism anyway, and got worse from then on. And everybody had to go out and work for the cause.
They were conscripted, weren't they? There was conscription.
Yeah, conscription, yeah.
Because you told me that Uncle Lou was an electrician.
Les was.
Les
was the electrician.
Oh, yeah, Uncle, let's put some of the electricity in our house at,
What about
in Isabel Avenue.
Oh, it closed up right
For how
away.
long?
Oh, yeah, it closed up all the time.
He looks like
I
an
don't
Indian.
remember, I went to counter
Oh.
after.
Oh.
So you didn't go to school?
Before the earthquake, but after the earthquake, we went right away to Canada. Mother's.
You didn't want to go, did you?
Huh?
Did you want to go to Canada?
No, I didn't. I wanted to stay on. But I was the youngest one, so I had to go with Mother and Dad to Canada. Oh, you're going to fall down, you're going to fall down.
You think it's an earthquake there? We're gonna fall down.
Tell us about the time you used to go up to Yosemite with Aunt Ray and Uncle Max.
Oh, that was after.
That's when you
Then
came back?
during the earthquake, Max and Ray went out right away and took pictures. Max was working in the post office. At 5 o'clock in the morning, he got up and he hid underneath the marble.
The marble writing desk.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
that's what saved him. And then he came right out and he took pictures of the earthquake.
He got a picture of Caruso, didn't he? Didn't he get a picture of Caruso singing? Caruso was in San Francisco at that time, wasn't he?
What?
Caruso, the singer?
Oh, yes, well, that was later.
Oh, I
Was
thought,
that later or
No,
earlier?
that,
that
he
was
was at the same time.
he was at the Palace Hotel or something,
Yeah,
wasn't he?
yeah,
That's
he
what made
said he
him leave
never would
San
come back to San
Francisco.
Francisco again. He took the ferry boat to Oakland. That's what the story is. He took the
Well,
ferry boat to
how
Oakland
did,
and got out of town.
how come your folks came from Winnipeg down to San Francisco
Oh, the first
the
time?
first time?
We all came to San Francisco.
They didn't like Winnipeg?
Oh, yes,
He's
but,
chewing napkins.
the youngest brother, Dora's father,
Well,
his
youngest
name?
Weedman?
he was there first,
Uh-huh.
and then we came after.
What did your father do for a living?
That's a question, that's a question.
He was a philosopher.
He didn't do much of anything. He had a fruit stand on with the horse, and he sold fruit on the,
Like
on
a
the
peddler,
way.
like a peddler.
He prayed a lot, didn't he?
Sure, every day he'd go to shul.
Buy my fruit.
I remember the beard.
And I remember your story, Uncle Lou bought him a suit,
The spot.
and he wouldn't wear the suit except on Shabbos?
No, that's my grandfather.
What?
My grandfather.
Didn't he? His clothes weren't always that
Pardon?
clean, were they?
That was
That, no, that
Oh,
was
that.
my father's father, and that was my mother's
That's all.
mother.
And I
Now, how
remember
in the heck-
going to Jefferson
I
Square
had
Park.
pictures like that. I'd like to have those chairs.
On Golden Gate Avenue, that's
I don't know.
the park,
I
on
don't know how
Golden
that
Gate
happened.
Park.
Maybe they had only one.
That's the school I went to, Golden Gate,
My father, my grandfather, he didn't, I knew him.
till the third
Yeah.
grade. The
But
third
he
grade
didn't.
is when the earthquake was. Oh, look at
That's-
this.
He likes to chew on
Rabin,
it.
he was Prime Minister of Israel.
I'm afraid he choked
Yeah.
on it.
Well, why after the earthquake did they go back to Canada?
Just mother and dad and me.
What did he do up in Canada?
I don't know, I didn't want to go, but I had to go because I was the youngest one. And the others could take care of themselves, so they were all working.
So where'd you go to school in Canada?
Oh, I went to the Canada Canadian, I forget, Northway School, you would know that.
Aaron,
Oh, I do.
Aaron.
And then when you came, how old were you when you came back down again?
1909 for Ray's wedding.
What are you gonna do?
I
You gonna go
came
get those? You gonna go get those?
1909 she got married.
That's only 3 or 4 years.
So you
Oh, you
were in high
did
school, you
get
went to, where'd you go to high school?
Come on,
There,
Oh, you mean
In
the-
Canada?
in Canada,
come on,
first year.
come on,
Oh, the
No.
first year you went to
come
high
on.
school there.
Go get them.
The high school I went there,
Go
to the first
forward.
grade, yeah, first
Come on,
year.
come on, Aaron.
Oh, yeah, in Canada.
I'm going out to Walnut Creek. I need some things desperately, and this is when I haven't been able to get out
Why
to
did you move
shopping.
to Sonoma?
Say
Why
hi,
did you move
Grandpa.
to Sonoma?
What do you
Oh,
say?
Sonoma, I got married, that's
Come on.
different, but I
Well,
was.
that's
Ask her
where
how,
mother
how she
lied.
met Dad.
Oh, how did
Yeah,
that?
How did you meet your husband?
Great seeing
How'd you meet Dad?
Great seeing you.
Alameda.
Goodbye,
You
love.
go?
Who introduced you to
I
Dad?
need to, if I stay on there long enough, I'm still
Sadie,
Get up again.
a
I'm so
prophet,
tired,
and
really.
her husband was a friend of Dad's. And I met
I was a wreck on Saturday.
I didn't sleep all night.
Sit down. Oh, he says I'm
trying
being
to call.
For my
Aaron.
How long did
No,
he
where
court
was you,
you?
where were you living at the time? Alameda?
Huh?
Where were you living? Alameda at that time?
Yeah,
Not in San
with
Francisco.
Ray.
Not in San Francisco anymore. Alameda then.
Alameda with Ray. I was living with Ray. I came in 1909 after Ray got married. Lou sent for me. He said he'd bring me back to San, because I was very unhappy living in Canada. I wanted to come back. So he took me back. I stayed with Ray. And Max were wonderful to me, just wonderful. Ray and Max, they just made me so welcome there. And I stayed there with them.
Was Uncle Ben living in Alameda then too?
No, he never lived in Alameda.
Oh, he never did.
No, he lived in San Francisco.
San
I
Francisco.
met him through Sadie Abramovitz, who's a friend of mine. I met from Canada too. She had some friends from Canada. I met her, and I met her husband.
What year were you married? What year did you?
In Alameda,
No,
at
when-
Ray's house.
Oh, at Ray's house.
Yeah.
Oh, that's where
She
you went.
had a beautiful wedding for me. I remember she had stuffed oranges. A big job. Scooped out the oranges
Yeah.
for everybody. And filled it with fruit and a big bow on the top of it. You know, it's a lot of work
I
for
should-
so many people.
Did they have a rabbi in Alameda then?
Oh, 3 rabbis.
Oh, my
I
God.
had 3. My dad was so
There's her
religious.
ketubah.
Oh, for goodness sake.
Get that.
Now, what year was that? What
I don't
year
know,
was
can
she
you read
married?
Hebrew?
But they had,
But
but
you
they-
didn't have
Well,
English.
where did the rabbis come from?
San Francisco.
Well, they had a couple
He
of
had to
different-
come from San Francisco. My father had to have his rabbi from the real religious show, you know, Orthodox.
Oh, was Grandpa at the
I have
wedding?
to tell you.
Oh, sure.
He came back-
Everybody was at the wedding.
They came back down?
Yeah, Libby and everybody came
Down
to
for the
San
wedding.
Francisco, to Alameda then.
Isn't that wonderful?
And everybody came to my wedding, the whole family.
One,
Oh, isn't that
They all
wonderful?
were there, yeah.
Is that on Liberty Street?
It was on Garfield Avenue.
Garfield,
you
you
know,
went. Oh,
where
Garfield.
I lived.
Garfield.
200 Garfield.
Well, didn't they live in Liberty Street for a while too?
And then we lived in Liberty, yeah.
Liberty. Okay.
Yeah,
I know
Liberty.
Garfield.
That was also the 3200 block.
Oh, for goodness sake.
Well, when
Those houses still exist, you know.
when did you work in the candy store?
When I went to work.
I wonder if that was the year she
Yeah,
was
she
married.
worked in a candy store, Gary,
No, I did work in the candy store.
Oh, pardon me.
The factory.
It's all right.
in the candy factory.
Yeah, in the
Sailors?
office.
What?
And I used to go get
pretty
Oh,
good.
yeah.
candy,
26
candy,
pictures
you
out of
know.
24-year-old.
You know what you used to
This,
get us
this
kids?
is really funny. Matt's
Baseball
a great
cards.
notcher, a terrible notcher. And I go to they bring a batch of candy every time they made candy. On each floor, there were 7 floors of candy.
Wow.
And they
Paradise.
They bring samples down to us. I take to Max, he loved candy. So he had candy in one pocket and a book in the other. And that's the way he went to work all the time.
Well, he was a real intellectual.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, he was wonderful. He had a book in his pocket all the time.
Well, I remember you used to get us baseball, what do you call them, baseball
Oh, yes,
cards.
and I worked in the premium department, yeah.
Yeah, she used to give us kids the baseball, you know, the...
Baseball picture.
You know,
Picture
Zena
cards, yeah.
Candy,
You
they
should
have
say
a prize,
very
Zena
valuable
Candy, you
today.
know,
Oh.
at the prize.
Yeah.
And I had to get the prizes for the kids. We got 100 packages of this.
That's
But when did you quit working? When you got pregnant with
Then I
Annette?
got married.
When she got married. Yeah, they didn't work after they were married. That was a no-no in those days. Once you got married, you stopped working.
No, I stopped working.
I
yeah.
tried this Fuji film.
But I kept up my
Very good.
music.
Some
I
people
was
say it's a
singing
little
in that
too
town.
blue, that's all.
I sang in all the
My
words.
neighbor used it on
All
a...
the words.
He said,
In Canada too.
You said during World War I you sang.
Yeah, in Canada.
Where'd you sing, like at the USO or whatever, the Canadian
We
equivalent?
had a movie, we made a show at Fantasia Theater,
Could be.
Jewish people. And I
But the old,
performed,
I know
I
the
sang
old
at
days
that.
people said that, this guy going back
And
5,
different
10 years.
people performed, some played music, piano, and so forth.
But the next,
some
it wasn't
actors.
really, they really
When
wasn't
did you take
the problem
music
of the
lessons?
film.
When did you take
It's the-
singing lessons?
It's the way
When I came here from Canada.
Canada.
No, I took singing lessons in Canada
Fujifilm developed.
before I came here.
That was okay. It was the, where you can.
So when did you start? Because I remember as a little girl, I remember you're singing
Yeah,
opera songs.
yeah.
So you
I
did that?
could. I sang from
I want to get those
through
developed.
Canada. I
Forgot
quit
what's on it.
school. I went to quit high school.
You will have
I
it.
And I
take pictures
took
of the
the
baby. By the time I get it
piano.
developed, you know.
You don't forget when it was.
And
Yeah.
Well, we
singing.
have a camera.
And I taught piano,
half
paid
frame.
for my singing
That
lessons.
means if you have 36 pictures, 50,
And,
the roll 36.
My family
That
gave
takes
me all
72.
my music. I
I
had
don't think
beautiful
it-
music.
I
That
tried
and
to
I
only
of
put 20, so
operas
it's 40.
and everything.
they
I
had
gave
one.
it all
Yeah.
away so
They
foolishly.
come in 12?
I gave
No,
it
no,
to
no, this is-
Ruth to
I
give
think-
away
This is the
because
Kodak.
I moved
Well,
so
there's
much.
36.
Yeah.
But I should have kept some of the music.
Well, you can't look back.
Yes.
You can't look back. So when did Auntie Ray move to Berkeley? I remember, and I
Oh, that
remember.
was later. She lived in
I don't
Alameda.
remember Auntie Ray's.
She lived in El Cerrito, I think.
Oh,
When I got married, she lived in El Cerrito.
2 months.
As I recall.
Oh,
She
there
lived
were,
in Alameda, you know, for a long time. Ray had a beautiful home before she got married. And they would spend every weekend and money they'd spend furnishing up the house.
Tripod.
Her house was immaculate. I have a picture of every room.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Everything was just immaculate with Ray.
Well,
Her stoves and everything. You could see the kitchen and everything. And she built a tent for the boys to sleep out in the back till they got married, till Les got married. And Lou.
Now, from Alameda, she moved to
Alameda.
Berkeley, but then she moved to Berkeley.
Oh, she didn't move to Berkeley until the boys went to college.
I only remember her in
Look how
El
the film was
Cerrito, I
In
think.
Berkeley?
In El
You
Cerrito.
remember it, Alameda?
No, that's before my time.
She was in Berkeley then.
And in El Cerrito, I think she
She had
had
a
a cute
beautiful
little
home in
house.
Berkeley,
She had a
yeah.
cute little house.
do you remember Libby and Fred's wedding?
Yeah, sure I do. I sang at it.
In
Where were
Canada?
they married? In Canada?
Yeah.
Oh, you went up to Canada for my father and mother's wedding?
I sang when your folks got married.
That was in 1913.
In Canada.
Wasn't that 1913?
Yeah.
January.
Yeah, I don't know.
That I know.
I remember,
How was the weather?
Horrible.
it was a big wedding. It was a big wedding.
yeah?
You know how they do in Canada. It was a real big wedding. You know, everybody came and everybody...
Was Aunt Annie already married?
Huh?
Annie and Joe were already married.
Yeah, well, they were there,
She was
yeah.
older than
Oh,
Libby.
sure,
Yeah.
they were
She was
married.
the oldest of the sisters.
We all
Annie-
stayed with
Annie was the oldest of the sisters,
Yes.
right.
Annie and then who? My
Annie.
mother?
And then Libby.
And Libby and I were stayed with Ray.
I see.
She was-
Now, who was Annie was the oldest, my mother was the second oldest?
Yeah, yeah.
And then who's next?
And
Ray? Ray?
Ray, yeah.
And
There were
then,
2 boys.
oh, then there were 2 boys.
Louis.
The boys came later.
Did they all, then they had all lived then, huh?
I know one sister died, didn't one?
That's the oldest one. I don't even remember her. That was in Canada, in Russia, yeah.
Oh, way back.
Yeah. I don't remember that. And look at that.
Yeah.
That's a good baby, you know, he's been up quite a while.
Not one I mean, really, he's a good baby.
But I remember
Sure tell that's
Fred,
not our kids.
I remember your
Gary
dad
was
and Libby
listening.
going together. And I remember they buying candy, 2 candies. They did buy a bag of candy.
When did they leave Winnipeg? Libby and Fred, what year was it?
1920.
When I got married,
In 1920 then?
yeah,
Okay, then we know when you were married.
21 I got
20,
married.
oh, in 21, okay.
But they came to Alameda in 1920,
More?
I know that.
More?
I was born in 22.
Yeah, I remember you.
They-
All right,
I
I was married a
you
year
was
before
year
you
old.
were for
You were not even a year old when I got married.
Yeah.
there. And Annette was born, she's
Was I at
younger
your
than
wedding?
Yeah.
He doesn't remember.
No, he doesn't.
I was at your mother's wedding.
I'm surprised, Ralph. You don't
You
remember.
probably cried.
You weren't as good as
I'm
this
surprised
one.
you don't remember.
How old were you then?
Less than a
Look
year.
at
Less
that
than a
smile.
year, see?
Isn't that something?
That's something.
Look at that smile.
Puts his head down.
Probably about this age.
That smile.
Is that a
Isn't that
kid?
something? Look at that.
They said I was one of the worst babies. She said they had to take
Look
care
at
of me or
that
something.
smile.
I would hold my breath and literally turn blue.
Terrible.
He was a terrible
But she said,
son.
I don't know if it's true or
You were an
not.
awful kid?
That's what she said. I said I would hold my, if I didn't get my way, I would hold my breath and turn blue. That's what your mother told me. I don't know.
He was a terrible baby, this one.
No, I don't remember.
You said I used to hold my breath and turn blue. I remember you told me that once.
What?
I used to hold my breath and turn blue.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. I remember Annette, she packed along with you everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Are you gorgeous?
Whether you liked it or not.
Hello, pumpkin.
All I remember when I used to come up to Sonoma, and Bob Crown, my good friend, would write me on a postcard. And Annette was not above keeping such a thing. She's so inquisitive.
Annette, and she never closed her mouth.
Yeah, and so she would read the postcard. So then we started writing in Spanish. We were in high school Spanish. Neither one of us knew what each other was writing, but that's okay.
Well, I remember when Dad was in the sanitarium, you came up and made hamburgers. That's how we
Yeah.
survived.
No, Annette made the hamburger.
I remember
I don't know, did I?
Well, Dad was in the sanitarium. I was in the 4th grade when Dad got sick, I
Yeah,
remember.
you're little yet.
That doctor became very, very famous, didn't
Dr. Eloesser.
he? He became quite.
Oh, yeah.
He
He stood on a box to operate.
Yeah.
But he became one of the most famous doctors in San Francisco history almost, because he went down to Mexico or
I don't know
something.
how the hamburger turned out, did you? I mean,
Well, Ralph could make hamburgers. He was a good hamburger maker.
In those days, you were glad to eat anything.
But Annette was already older. I was a baby when
You were little.
I was little when Dad got sick. How did you
There's
learn
5
about?
years difference between.
How did you learn how to take care of a store?
I learned I had to get in and learn.
You just did it.
That's right.
You
That's
just did it.
I didn't know anything about stores. I was taking up bookkeeping,
It's amazing that you could keep the store going for a year.
Oh, you mean when
When
it
Dad
was
was
very,
sick.
very hard. I
Well,
didn't know if I'd be able to, but I kept up.
Did
That was hard though.
oh, I bet they had long hours too.
Oh, you little sweetie. Oh, you little sweetie, yeah.
He's dying
Yeah,
to crawl.
yeah, it will be. When I start taking off my legs.
And she's dying that he doesn't.
Look, where did he go?
Sue, I love that little green outfit on him. I love that color. It's just cute as can be.
Oh, he's turning. There he goes.
Oh, he's gonna roll over.
He goes all over the room, he just doesn't
Does he
stop.
roll over?
Yeah, oh, he's been rolling over for months.
There he goes.
Oh, wait a minute. Here we go.
Look at him there. Look at him there. Look at him
Maybe he'll do
there.
that for you.
Look.
Since his shot, he hasn't done anything. This is the first time he's even moved his leg.
Come on. Come
Ah,
on.
geez, you could
Come
probably
on,
swim with
come
a pick
on,
like
come
that.
He
on,
does,
come
he does
on.
swimming.
Ralph was a swimming teacher.
He said, what's such a big deal?
Hey, well listen, I can't lift my feet up like that. That's the deal.
Put your toes in your mouth.
Huh?
Can you put your toes in your mouth?
God. Yeah, look at that. Hey, fella.
Can you turn over again, huh?
Yeah.
That's good.
Hey, where you going again?
There he goes.
You're a
Yeah.
You're a top picture.
Move forward. Beep, 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 beep.
There we go. Here.
Little like the baby. Yeah. He's really unhappy out there.
What, the dog? Is the dog, I bet he's very gentle with the baby though. Yeah, I bet he's gentle with him, huh?
Well, he just wants to overlook.
Yeah.
Oh,
There he goes.
Scares
Come
the
on,
baby?
Come on over.
Not really.
We really haven't had the dog around the baby because you've
Oh.
always put him out.
Mary's a good dog. She's a good dog. It's a she.
Geez, I still remember that dog when he used to chase the other dog and
Oh,
bite the
remember
tail around the
Moselle?
food.
Moselle.
Yeah,
And
Moselle.
used to hold on to the tail and the
And
other
then
dog was
they
going.
would shake her into the
Yeah.
pool. This
Yeah.
dog.
That's,
That's the dog that used to hang on to the tail.
I never thought it was the funniest thing that way. The dog.
Skittles is an old dog.
Yeah,
Skittles,
no,
what they call
oh,
Lori bought her,
I remember.
went
when
out of the pet store window and then left for college. That's typical of something Lori would do.
Remember, this is on tape.
Remember, we are saying only good things.
But I still remember that dog
I
right
do
before
remember
that.
being the youngest. They all
Yeah, and the
care
dog
of
was
me
this big.
beautiful.
Yeah, with little teeny
Libby
thing.
used to
Grab him
know
tail,
us every
shake her off into,
before
run
me.
around, You shake her
dressed me
off
up
into the
like
water.
$1,000,000.
And how did she get out?
I
Oh,
always
she learned to
dressed
swim
like,
very
I
quickly.
remember Aunt Libby sewed clothes for you.
huh?
Didn't Aunt Libby sew clothes for you?
She told, that's what I say,
Oh,
she
that
made
dog drives me
it
crazy.
for me.
She was a good seamstress.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, at one time, she could have
She
made,
works.
except women didn't do
She
that.
used to do stitching,
She-
you know,
Well,
for the blouses,
ask her how
fine
to sum up
prints
her
and
90 years.
everything.
Well, she actually became a designer, and she could have made
21,
more money than my
25
father,
or
but
Yeah.
that was considered,
Women didn't do those.
oh, you didn't
Yeah,
make more money, I mean,
yeah,
you
yeah.
retired before you made more money than your
Your
father.
father was a tailor.
Yeah, but that went out.
He never made a fortune.
No, believe me. Well, he was
No,
in
I'm not
custom
moving.
tailoring, and then
I'm
depression came. He used to do very
what-
well, you know, before, you know, for a working man, he did well before the depression. He would make about double what an ordinary working man did, but then they had he was a skilled tailor, but then everybody had custom suits before 29. Then 29 came in, and everybody got ready-made, and that's when things really fell apart.
Your mother did very fine work,
Yes.
fine tucking and fine lace, you know, insertions, everything, detailed work. Very beautiful.
She could look at a design and, you know, crochet, I don't know, it was crocheting or they have another name for it,
She
but,
crocheted.
I
she
still
knitted,
have-
she did
I
everything.
still have her
You're
Afghans.
I did too.
Yeah.
but she could,
Nothing Ralph Larry
Look at
wearing.
Skeezings down there.
Lori's named after Ralph's mother. What's her name?
Libby. But she could look at, she couldn't read very well, you know,
I think
English,
we
but
better
she
let
could look at a
go.
design and she could
Yeah.
copy it.
Why don't you give him the
She
diaper?
used to sit and crochet and knit. She'd make
When-
for the
She
Alameda
did
Temple. She
beautiful
made
work.
quilts, I remember.
Where's
You
it?
know, crochet them.
I remember when Ray Altman, he used to, when he was in the
Have
war,
you
he
been-
wanted wool socks, and my mother used to knit wool socks for him.
Peekaboo.
Well, I remember going to Alameda, and Lorraine was just kind of like the fairy princess because she's like, what, 11, 10 years older than I am, and I thought she was gorgeous.
Oh, God,
She's
she was
pretty.
really, I mean,
She
you all
was absolutely gorgeous,
Who's
or
that?
at least in
Lorraine.
my mind
Well,
as
she
a little
was.
grammar school girl. She was,
Well,
and
I
I
remember in
remember
high school,
I
it was
went in and I
always all the
couldn't
boys used to say,
afford a
"That's your
watch.
cousin, you know?"
And she
Oh, yeah.
gave me a gold watch, that she, and I thought that was, I mean, it was, I kept it forever. It was just wonderful.
No, she was, I remember when I was in high school, of course, we went to they only had one high school in Alameda, and,
She was the most
Yeah.
popular girl.
well, I mean, they'd say, "That's your cousin?" You know? How could you have a cousin like that?
Well, Ralph, you were president of the student body. right?
No, that was Bob Crown.
Bob.
I was president of the class, but the class one time.
Matter of fact, you know, I was thinking, the other day, I nearly got bumped into somebody and I looked and it was Jean Miller.
Oh, for goodness.
He was in
Sure,
the
your
European
shirt off.
column recently.
Something about he didn't get his bill paid for
by Super Bowl or something.
somebody, yeah.
Linen, he
the-
supplied the linen to
the
something
linen.
Oh,
and
yeah, somebody told me.
he didn't get
He's
paid.
Well,
Yeah,
you know
I think
who else I was
Come on.
seeing? Mrs. Lewis.
Oh, yeah, Estelle, Rose Lewis?
Yeah.
She passed
She's
on.
gone.
She's gone.
Yeah.
That's a funny story.
She had a son, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, Elliot.
Yeah, he won a prize last
He
year.
Yeah.
won a prize in our raffle last year.
Yeah.
It was really funny, you know, I hadn't seen this woman since I was 10 years old. No, it was only about 4 years ago. So she was in the
Way up in the sky, where
This
the
one has so
little
many pictures
birdies
of them.
fly, down, down in the depths, where the little birdies rest, with a wing on the left and a wing on the right. We'll
Wait a
let
minute.
the
What is
dear birdies sleep on the long night.
That's quite a lullaby.
That's a pretty long. I've never heard that.
Well, sing the whole thing, Aunt Dot.
He wants to
every,
sing it
every
now.
grandchild I have, I started
think he
with
wants
that
to
song.
Aunt
Now,
Dot,
this is the last one.
Aunt Dot, sing it again. They want to get the whole song.
Huh?
Have you got the whole
I
song?
think we got the whole
Oh,
thing.
you have?
Where the little birdies fly, down, down in the nest, where the little birdies rest, with a wing on the left and a wing on the right. You want some more? You want some more?
He knows row, row, row your boat.
Oh, yeah, I knew
He
that.
knows,
Row,
I think he wants to go down.
yeah.
I
Down,
think he
down,
wants
down.
some mobility
You want to
here.
go down? He wants to go down. Let's go down.
Grandma?
Okay.
Grandma?
Down.
Do you have a 90th birthday wish?
Oh, I wish that everybody keeps well. That's the main thing.
That's the truth.
That's the truth, right. Well, you got another one coming up.
Little skeezicks.
When is Flora due?
Florida's October.
October. Okay, got another one coming up.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not so far.
Bob,
Bob's wife.
Bob and Flora are expected.
8th grade. But I can't believe that I'm 90. I don't think I am. I think there's some mistake somewhere along the line.
Well, I was surprised that waitress asked for your ID card before she served you a drink today.
That's funny, huh? Is that
No,
funny?
it's not. That's funny.
Hey,
How old were you when you got
Call.
married,
You can
Mom?
call.
huh?
How old were you when you got married?
Oh, about 25.
I got a kick the last time or one of the times I was here, and Lorraine was telling us about, she and Ray went to this thing, and senior citizens get some kind of a discount at
yeah.
the movies, and they forgot their card, and
believe it?
they booked, no,
Even
they,
ask her for
the identification, she said, I'd kill
She was married, I can't read this, but it looks like 1923, then how could she be married?
What does it say there, Shell?
I don't know, I can't
No,
read it.
it couldn't be, because Annette was born in 23.
Oh, and they didn't do that in those days.
If they did, they forged something was,
If they did, we didn't hear about it, you know, like they do
well, you know what, a
today.
lot of those things are not the proper date of the wedding.
No, I don't, I can't read
Oh, it
it.
is.
No,
You
but,
can't
no,
read
they
this girl,
didn't.
you're Jewish.
I know, whenever the guy, rabbi got around to doing it, that was the day
No
they got
way.
the license.
That's ridiculous.
I mean,
But those times things were so cheap and reasonable. I remember Lou gave me for my wedding, what do you call those rugs?
Oriental rug?
Yeah, gorgeous one.
Oh, I remember.
What happened to it?
Gave it away.
It's
Well,
worth a fortune.
and that's when it's in the first place.
Don't let Roy Cohn get it.
Annette went on the Oriental.
Oriental rug. So they
I have to have that all the time.
Turn on the light right there, next to you.
Then I got rid of it, of
Well.
course. But I never got an Oriental after that.
That's not,
His business was to buy up stores. And I went along with him. And Ned was a baby, and we went in the car. He had, by the way, he had one of the first cars out, you know.
Dad did?
Dad, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And Lou did have the first car out. He had one of the first ones. So we went to, what was I telling you about?
Sonoma, how you got to Sonoma.
Oh, yeah, so then he was out buying stores. And we came to Sonoma, and we saw this little lady, Berg is her name, Jewish lady. She had the little store, but she had baby things in it. And Dad bought the store from her. She wanted to sell it. So he bought the store from her, and we landed there, and he gradually added more things to it, you know, made a department store out of it. And that was a terrible chatterbox. Terrible.
We never knew.
No.
Terrible. So she was about 2.5 years old. She'd insult one customer after another. I think that hat's terrible. Your dress is terribly long. We couldn't shut her up. So it was a case of either
not the
losing
net I
store
know.
or getting rid of her or something. So we found an Italian lady that took care of it. She took a conduction to it. And then Mrs. What's her name? Scarponi?
Scarponi.
And we bringed her over there. We had to bribe her, you know, to leave her there. It was terrible. And she fought with her until one day she was so sassy and mean to her that she put her in the closet. And, oh, she was a terrible brat.
Not a-
Terrible. I would tell her that because of her feelings.
You just did.
Well,
But she was a
And this
terrible.
one was never a problem at all.
Shirley was a very good child.
Sure,
Very
see?
good.
See?
But,
I
Nat
prompted
used
the
to
right
take care of
question.
her.
And remember when she dropped me out of the buggy on my
Oh,
head?
yes.
That's why you were a good baby after that.
I put Shirley in the buggy. I gave her her milk bottle and put her out in the buggy to sleep. And Dad was on skates. And she saw the buggy, so she released the
brake.
Oh my God.
and she took the baby out with the skates, and she fell out in the street. And then slipped out, and she
That
left her out
accounts
in
for
the
it.
street in the buggy. Well, I was scared to death. I thought, sure, something happened to Shirley. And we grabbed her up and took her right to the doctor immediately. She cried blue murder, but we went and took her, and everything was, I gave her the devil. I don't know if I slapped her or what, but I was so mad at her. Here and there, Shirley was sleeping peacefully. And she had to release her and take her out to ride on with her skates. And she landed out in the street, but lucky that Shirley didn't get hurt or anything. We ran to the doctor right away
What happened to the baby buggy?
with Annette crying her eyes out. So I went with her to the doctor, and the doctor said she was all right. So then we felt better. But for no reason at all, she was
Annette was
sleeping
quite a
peacefully
kid. Annette,
in her buggy.
Well, that sounds like
Annette
a
was
very...
quite a kid, wasn't
Oh,
she?
she was
Oh.
a holy devil. She doesn't like to be reminded of it, so don't say it. Don't tell her anything.
Oh,
I don't
my.
say
She
anything.
probably told her children and her grandchildren
No,
how
she-
perfect she was.
Yeah, she never knows. Don't ever tell her because
They're going to hear
I
now.
don't want to admit it.
Send her the copy of
When
the
that
tape.
comes in January, you can show
Oh,
her
we can
the
blackmail her.
Well, Annette did like to talk.
Oh, she was a chatterbox ever since she was a year old. I remember when when I was pregnant with Shirley, she told the policeman, she told the fireman, everybody she'd meet, she'd tell everybody. She was really thrilled about Shirley anyway, because there was 5 years difference, I think.
Yeah.
And
Isn't that something?
What did Grandpa think of all this?
Grandpa wasn't with us then. He was in San Francisco.
No,
he means
no.
He means
Uncle
Uncle
Ben.
Ben.
Uncle Ben.
About
Yeah.
what?
What did,
About Annette being such a chatterbox.
Oh, he didn't. He was busy with his business. He didn't pay much attention.
If you think Annette has a memory, he had a memory.
Oh,
busy.
that was a memory.
He was interested in business, you know.
But he remembered,
Thing.
he was at our house one time in San Francisco, so this must have been like 50 years later, and he was remembering details, I mean intimate details, phone numbers or addresses of business deals that he had in 1912 or something.
Yeah.
Unreal.
Well,
I remember he used to come to our house and he used to sing the hymn to the
Pia
Tsar.
Cuba, Doya Cuba, I
I,
remember.
I said, who else has got an uncle that can
Oh,
sing
my.
the hymn to the Tsar?
Oh, Ben had all kinds of little ditties he used to, and they still remember. You still do.
Yeah, Annette does
Annette
better.
still remembers those little ditties.
Yeah.
He was a great one for telling stories.
Oh, yeah.
I remember Josephine the Spider. Do you
Yeah.
remember Josephine the Spider?
Well, Estelle says that still to this day, she never knew anybody that could really translate Yiddish as well as Uncle Ben. He could really get the right flavor to the
Really?
word.
See, I
Didn't
don't
you-
did
Yeah,
Yiddish,
Yiddish.
so.
But because Estelle can understand, but it's hard for her to relate
He
it.
had a knack of putting things, in the
Yeah.
right word.
He had a knack being on the road. He had a wonderful collection of stories and mices. And
That's
everything.
right, and the Yiddish, she had the Yiddish down pat, which is lost
Yeah.
today, really.
I still
He used to
remember
give us
going
that-
on one of those trips with him up to Lake County, and I don't know where it was, and you can't, I'm sure these things don't exist anymore, but we used to get buttermilk at a place, and the butter was the size of your thumb that was floating around in the glass of buttermilk. But
He loved her.
but there were places that I mean, it was like, that was a good year of wine, you know, that was a good thing.
I want to ask, didn't he buy Stolzak's store, the Grandpa Stolzak's store on Market Street, a shoe store or something? Remember my neighbor's,
Mission Street, I
on
think.
Mission was it? Remember my neighbor's father,
Corbin.
Corbin?
Yeah.
His grandfather, Stolzak, had a business.
No, he was in the post office.
No, that was Kleinhop.
No, that's Kleinhop, but the other side of the family, where there was some kind of a store on
shoe
Market,
store, a
on
repair
Mission
shoe.
Street or shoe
Yeah, that's
store.
the store he had.
Yeah, and he bought it from the Stolzak family.
What do you mean?
Oh, was it?
Yeah, I think so.
Remember? I can't, you don't remember where that was.
I know the store.
Do you?
Yeah, I
Where was
remember the store because I had to work, living in Alameda,
Uh-huh.
and,
What kind of store was
a
it?
department
Oh,
store,
it was
the
a
big
department.
one. If it's a, that's the story,
No.
he had the
That
same.
must have been a later one.
Must have been later.
On Mission Street?
Mission?
Yeah.
But this was a later store, because he had a shoe repair shop. And,
Oh, that was the first store.
yeah, that was the first store, and Uncle Ben
But that
was a
wasn't on
shoeman.
Mission, was it?
Yeah, that was on.
No, it wasn't on Mission.
It wasn't on Mission, it was
No.
on Market?
It was out near Divisadero, out that way. I think.
Could have been.
Could have been, I don't know.
I know Uncle Ben knew the details to the amount of deposit he put on the store.
He was really remarkable with numbers.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, he could take an inventory, and in his head, he could, like, you know, he'd look at the boxes, and he'd all of a sudden multiply the whole thing, and he'd know.
Yeah.
He didn't have need a
He'd
computer.
know. He didn't need a computer.
Yeah, he didn't need any bookkeeper at all. I'd write it and I'd be figuring it out, and he'd already know it.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, it's funny, well, this is not as dramatic as that, but we used to go out
Yeah.
and count
Yeah,
inventory
what's the
with some of
memory?
these warehousemen, and they would look at the things and say, oh, there's so many boxes in there. And I'd have to go, so many this way, so many that way, and by God, they were right. That was time for us
I've
to
got a
go.
picture of Dad's first store. You saw it, didn't you?
That's
Yeah,
When he
what
came
yeah.
to Texas.
Yeah.
He's a little, looked like a little guy then. And Frank, and he had
Oh,
a
yeah, I
friend
saw it.
there. And this friend in Texas was very wealthy. Now, he's a very rich man now. And so Annette found out, and he's very very fond of Ben, you know. He passed away now, but his children, that's this other Annette.
Uh-huh.
Annette, what's her name?
Annette May.
Annette May is one of the children. And Annette has gotten very close with her. Isn't that funny? How she's met Ben's family and I have never met them.
Isn't that interesting?
She found it out because she saw this PhD application come over her desk. And it was Annette May, and she remembered Dad telling her
Imagine.
about a friend, his very closest friend, who was named May. And I don't know, there were some more things in the PhD application, and she read further, and she thought, I'll just find out. She picked up the phone and called the girl in Los Angeles, and she was, in fact, the father was from the same province, Pilz, in Poland, and they grew up together, and they were friends in Texas, and they developed a friendship, all from this PhD candidate application.
The story I remember.
Annette has Dad's thing for details. I mean, she remembers.
Can you
I may
imagine
even
that?
have the little letter here that I think is really interesting.
And I met her too. And now she met somebody else too. Dad, I never met Dad's family. She's met them in Texas or somewhere.
When you were married, he had no family here at all?
No, his brother.
Frank, I remember Frank
Frank,
Berman,
yeah.
I remember.
That's all he had here.
Well, I remember he telling me the story. He got off the boat from Europe,
Yeah.
and for some reason they let, yeah, and all he could remember, all he could say was bananas. That's all he could eat was bananas.
That's right.
Yeah,
I
do you
remember that.
Him telling you the story.
This is from It's a Small World. I don't know
He,
if Annette sent it here. It's a small world. At my job at the National Academy of Sciences, excuse me, among other duties, I process forms sent to us by new PhD recipients from all over the United States. One day I noticed that there was a new recipient by the name of Annette May from UCLA. This was a name so similar to mine that I became intrigued. I looked further into her biography and learned that her maiden name was Anisman. That name sounded familiar. As a child, I remembered my father telling me that he came from Tilst, Poland, with a cousin named Morris Annisman. He settled in Shreveport, Louisiana, while my father went to Texarkana, Texas, and then on to San Francisco. I reasoned that since Morris Annisman was my father's age, a daughter of his would be around my age. I discovered that she was 3 years younger than I. With each new item I read, I became more intrigued. When I mentioned it to a coworker, she suggested that I write to this person. The next day, I wrote to Annette May in Los Angeles. Within a week, I received a phone call from her. It indeed was the right family. Her father and my father were not only cousins, but boyhood friends. Since that day, about 10 years ago, we two Annettes have become close friends. I visit with her at least once a year when I travel to California. This newly found relative has enriched my own life. We genealogists find clues in most unusual places.
Isn't
This
that
was in
nice?
the genealogy.
You keep that record, huh?
Isn't that nice?
That is nice. That's very nice.
I would never have even, I'd see
So
the
we-
name
we
and
see
go,
this
that's
next
similar,
day.
and forget about it.
Yeah.
Isn't that day? She's, what is she now?
I don't know what her
Three years
PhD
younger.
is in.
She's
Well, I think we better go.
some kind of a doctor.
Yeah, I don't know what.
Doctor of something.
Dr.
Psychology or
Yeah,
something.
sit down now.
Tell,
What? What do you want?
I want to hear one more question for you. I want to know what you remember most about Grandpa.
Oh, I don't remember much about him.
No, about Ben. About
Ben?
your.
What I remember about him,
What's
he
your?
came from Europe
Uh-huh.
to Texarkana, and out there he was hungry, and they had bananas, and he bought a half a dozen bananas and he ate it all up. And he landed, his stomach was big, swollen out like that, and he had been pumped out. That's what it was in Europe, from Europe.
Yeah,
They never saw bananas before.
yeah. How old was he?
He was, well, I guess about 20. No, he couldn't have been.
He was younger
About
than.
18, I think, or 16, something like that.
He had a temper, didn't he?
Oh, yes. No, not very much of a temper. He didn't have that much of a temper.
I thought I remembered when.
Oh, when you heard his feelings when he got a brand new car and you threw up on it, he was wild. That's the only time that I remember him being mad. But he was really angry.
The yellow car.
Yeah, and he always took pride in his automobile and he bought a brand new one. And the first thing he did was to throw up on it.
What
And
ab-
we were on our way to Tahoe, to
Yosemite.
Yosemite. And it spoiled the whole trip for us.
What?
Because the car meant so much to him, you know, it was pride and joy.
Remember when his 215? His 215?
Yeah, he had crazy jokes. he was awake when he had a lot of humor. And being on the road, he had a wonderful memory for jokes. He could roll them off like anything. And the kids used to love that.
That's neat.
The crazy jokes, there wasn't anything to them, but the way he performed them.
When did you get friendly with the Shanskys?
When I came to Sonoma,
How did you meet Helen?
well, the other lady came into the store. She saw we were Jewish people. And she came in and spoke to us. She said, I have a daughter just about your age. And she said, I'd love you to meet them. And so we met Helen. We've been friends ever since. How many years is it? We came to Sonoma in 1920, 23.
Well, didn't Helen come to your house when Celia was born because Muriel was sick or something?
Yeah. She had some kind of infection. What was it, measles or something?
Yeah,
And so she stayed with me,
to keep the kids apart.
yeah. But I think it was 1923. that we came to Sonoma. Because I was married in 21, and Jeanette was about 2 years old.
And when did what's the matter?
Did you already go, stay?
Well, she was married in 21 and she was 20.
At Rosenthal's resort there in Boy Springs. And Dad was run down anyway. So he went over to see him and evidently got a little infection. And that was it.
I didn't know that TB was contagious that way. I guess so.
Mhm.
I didn't know that tuberculosis was contagious that way.
I didn't either, but he was so run down that he got it. We were all tested and everything. We were all right, so it's all right. But
Is he
he
going
was
to
run
sleep?
down, so run down.
He's tired.
He's been so good.
Is he sleeping?
No,
Just
he's
about.
resting.
He's got the hiccups now.
I love that green outfit on him. It had the cutest thing. Don't you like that green
I
outfit
think it's
on him?
darling. I think it's just darling.
He's been so good, though.
Knock on wood. Yesterday would have been miserable. I don't know, we would have been.
He's a good baby.
Well, happy birthday.
Ralph and
It's something to remember, 90 years old.
that is.
It is.
We'll
Yeah.
have to do this for your 100th.
Yeah, now we have to look forward to the 100th. Yeah, look forward to it. Those next 10 years are going to be tough. We'll try to make it though, Charlie.